This is a conversation with Jessica. Jessica is the first American woman to come to India and get a degree in Ayurveda, the traditional Indian medicine system. So, this is such a unique intersection, right? So, she has this Western thought, this scientific outlook on life, and then she combines it with such rigorous knowledge of the East with a full degree in Ayurveda. And in my opinion, the work that she does, she runs a company called Radiance with her co-founder, and well, I've worked with them, and I think what they're doing, it's unmatchable. And working with them, I've been able to develop some solid mental models for my own health and well-being. So I wanted to mention a few terms that we use in the conversation. So the most extreme form of detoxification process that Ayurveda prescribes is called Virechana. Panchkarma is the more popular one, and Virechana is the largest subset of it. And then I've also, on Jessica's recommendation, been to Africa and done this plant ceremony called Iboga. We talk about these experiences, and we also talk about Jessica's journey. Let's dive into the conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to see you again after such a long time.
It's good to see you too. Yes, and I'm really glad to have the opportunity to ask you all these questions that I've been curious about. Because how does someone end up in India from the US and to do a complete degree for 4 years? And like, how old were you back then? And yeah, I want to know that story. I think I would like to start there.
The short answer I like to say is by accident. The long answer is just by being kind of young and dumb, and it sounded like fun at the time. It really did. So I was 20. I had just turned 27 when I went, and I graduated high
Oh,
school when I
okay,
was
not
17.
that old. Okay, you were not like okay, you'd already done
School.
undergrad somewhere.
Well, that was a funny thing because I graduated from a really good high school when I was 17, just about to turn 18. And of course, the idea is everybody goes to college after that. So, and my dad actually had worked at Boston University since like 1984, waiting for us, my sister and I, to be able to go for free. So I graduated high school, and that was the expectation: was just go to BU, try it out, you know. But at that point, I had already started working. I started doing database work when I was like 15 and a half, 16. And that's when I was like, "Oh, this is great. This is just how my brain works." And so I got pretty good at it by 17 and kept going with that. And so I went to school, in college, and I was like, "What in the world is this? Is like high school all over again. This is terrible." And I quickly dropped out. I deferred for a semester, tried to go back again, tried to do their database course. I was like, this is a waste of time, guys. So I just stayed working, and I was quite successful by 21. I was basically the boss of all my friends who then graduated from college. So I felt like I had a good career at that point, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to sit in front of a computer all the time." And so I met a good mentor. Well, actually, after that, I started traveling. Like you, I love to travel. It's very hard to keep me still, or that there has to be something really worthwhile to make me stay in one place. Let me put it that way. And so I traveled all over the U.S. I mean, I drove around the U.S. kind of in circles. I would go on these long road trips and go exploring. And so I moved to California for a little while, came back to Boston, kept going on trips. I moved to Mexico for a year and a half, and that was fantastic. And then came back, and then yeah, I was introduced to a mentor he was really the reason that I went, and he was the one who told me, "Honey, you need to go to India and study this thing, and be an Ayurvedic doctor." I was like, "Sure, that sounds like fun. I'll go to India for 5.5 years. That sounds exciting." But, I mean, my brain wasn't really like, I had no idea what I was really getting into. I tried. I read the books that were there that I could get access to, and I was like, "Sure, this sounds nice." So it was really kind of, partially by accident, and then I tend to be a stubborn person, so by all the work I had to do just to get in, to get admission was I mean, that was treacherous just on its own.
Your journey is even more interesting than I could have imagined. So, so you meet this mentor person, and at the time, because of all the traveling and because of all the doing crazy things, he had already done something to your health, I suppose, and you're figuring out ways to improve your health back at that time, and you stumbled upon Ayurveda, and you met your mentor.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, that's definitely true, and it didn't even take traveling and living a ridiculous normal 20-something lifestyle to not feel good. I had actually had quite a few problems from very small, when
yeah,
I remember being like 2 or 3 years old and having eczema patches on my body that would just bleed very easily. So my skin was very weak, and
yeah.
this was kind of a note that my digestion was very weak, but, yeah, we ate junk food all the time. That was all we ever ate. We refused to drink water. We only drank Kool-Aid. We only drank soda. We'd eat out at fast food, McDonald's, Burger King, KFC all the time. And that's just what it was like growing up. There was no other option. And then sometimes somebody would cook some real food for dinner and we'd be like, no, ew, we're not eating vegetables. And now I spend basically, 70% of my day every day telling people to eat vegetables and eating vegetables myself.
Full circle.
Yep.
Okay, so you were 27 when you came to India, and all these undergraduates are like 18-year-olds, 18, 19, who are just entering college.
Yep.
And these are Indian kids. And you are an American person, and you come down straight to Indian town. You were in Udupi, I suppose. STM College, Udupi was your first place. And had you been to India before that? Or
So I made the choice to come to India in June 2006. This was 2.5 months before I was supposed to officially get admitted. And that was to go scope all this stuff out. Now, mind you, imagine 2004, 2005, 2006. Yeah, most of the people listening, you guys might not even remember what the internet was like back then.
yeah.
We did have internet then. We did. And it was slow, it was minimal. Fortunately, SDM Udupi had a website, and I would spend countless hours every day searching around, trying to research things, trying to learn about this, trying to decide, is this really a good idea or not? And I stumbled upon their website one day, and the excitement just overflowed because I saw the picture of their Dhanvantari statue in the hospital. I was like, that's it. I have to go there. And I have no idea why I had that feeling at that time, but that's how it happened. And I said, I saw the picture on the internet. That's where I'm going. This doesn't sound so good, does it? But
Oh, it
so
does.
June 2006, I worked here.
Yeah, this is what I was
I check
expecting.
everything out. Thankfully, well, so I was actually working at a healthcare company at the time, ironically, because they paid good money to do what was relatively easy work. And I basically was a report generator. So I would tip through piles of data for them and pump out all these reports. And at that company, of course, who else is working there but Indians? And I had an Indian as well. I had Indians on the team with me, and they were great, man. I'd go have lunch with these guys every day. We'd go for a walk after lunch. It was a really nice connection, and they were just easygoing, genuine people. I felt like I got along with them very easily. I enjoyed their intelligence and just their kind of like overall demeanor, easygoing demeanor. So was able to get help from them in this whole process too. Called the SDM college up one day, and two of these guys are from Bangalore. So they get on the phone and they start talking to the manager in Canada, and the guy's like, "What is going on? I don't know. What, a foreigner? What do you mean?" And it was just a whole funny circus. So by the time I got there in June, I was able to stay with some of their extended family, which was a huge help because they made sure that, I didn't get kidnapped, I didn't fall off a cliff or do some really silly thing that I was prone to do. And they took me around to all these places to meet the right people, and they were actually like good quality folks in the community. The wife was the RTO in charge. She was in charge of the entire RTO office, the transportation office, the equivalent of the DMV in the US. And her husband was in the police. And so it was very easy to be going around with these folks and then, be able to get in and talk to the people that I needed to talk to. And they thankfully spoke for me as well, because they could communicate on me much more effectively in Canada. So that helped. And finally, after a lot of circus in June, it was determined that I could actually apply. And so I had to go my initial application and approval through the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences in Bangalore, Jayanagar T block. And this one little man inside one of these little offices inside that giant building was ultimately the one who decided whether I would get in or not. And he looked at all my papers and he was like, no, 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 giving me a hard time, trying to make a big deal out of all kinds of little things, which there was a small thing. So as you already understood, all the kids in BAMS are Indians. They're all 18, 19 years old. They've all come out of education where they've done 10+2 in a specific format, and they've done PCB, physics, chemistry, and biology. Nobody is outside that track. And so here I come with, I had 3 years of biology, including AP Bio in high school because I loved biology, 1 year of chemistry, and then I didn't take physics because I hated math. So I did go to college, accredited university in Massachusetts to do a summer physics course to try to have something on paper. And he was trying to say no because of that.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah.
What we finally figured out was that obviously they wanted a bribe. And so another friend of a friend, these guys who I worked with, they really hooked me up. So one of his friends who lives in Bengal, big guy, he came with me one day and just said, what's going on here? Trying to make something happen. And the little guy, another little guy in a back room told him we want 25,000 rupees extra or 50,000 or something like that. And I was adamant. I said, absolutely not. No way am I going to pay anything now, because that's just setting me up for every time I want to pass exams, pay more. Every time something else, and they say, you want your degree? Pay more. And I didn't want to set the precedent from the start. So I said no. I said, I'll come back in August when school starts, and I will just, figure it out then. So I went home. I got more letters. I got a letter from the superintendent of the Boston Public School System, who happened to be the headmaster at my high school, and just a letter of kind of attesting to character and things like that. I mean, I went and I got as many things as I could possibly find to figure out. Went back in August, sat down there with that little guy again. And of all the things that worked, at the very end of the conversation, I was so upset about this, I started crying. He sat back in his chair. He said, okay, don't cry. You can do it. I'll let you in. So shit, man, you should just told me that from the beginning. I would have started with that. And there you go. That's how I got admission. So now he says, all right, just go to Udupi. You're admitted. We'll send the paperwork over in a couple of days. And I was like, okay, fine. So I go back over there and try to start getting settled. Where am I going to live? How am I going to do this? And how to go to school every day. And then that was just the beginning. There's so many more stories of ridiculous things, obviously.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. This is what I'd imagine. Like how if you come to India, this is what's going to happen, and it was worse than that. So I thought, okay, no, you are in a better part of India, like southeast, the coast, so one of the best parts of India. So you were in the Konkan region. Like, okay, maybe it was doable. But yeah, when I also spend now, I also spend a lot of time in South India, and So I know it's not that different. It's not. It's different on the surface. It is not as noisy. It feels more calm, but it's we are the same people. It's not. The food is better, yes, but apart from that, you had to face all those challenges, and I was just wondering what keeps someone going in the face of all those challenges. It's such a difficult thing to do. Come all the way here, spend time in this culture, and those kids are not like, yeah, I mean, you're sitting in that classroom. What's your social life like? And then you're spending 4 years here. So, yeah, what kept you going to those times? And
So it really was my mentor that ensured that I had the commitment to follow through and finish all of this. Um, I guess, up until that point in my life, I probably hadn't had a really good mentor like that. And so I was very lucky at that time to get his guidance and his persistence. Um,
yeah,
this is one thing I also try to encourage to folks when I'm working with them too, especially younger folks, especially younger guys in their 20s and 30s. Get a good mentor because it's going to make such a big difference in your life. You're not going to know what you could have missed out on by not having that right person guiding you ahead of these things. You know, Eh, kids in their 20s and 30s are so full of potential. And what we end up doing with that is largely dictated by what we hear around us and what we know to be even possible. We could sit around and imagine anything, but without my mentor, I never would have even known about this thing. I mean, meaning I never would have known like going to India was even a possibility. He told me so many things because his third son actually went to India to try to do this as well. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to pass exams and complete it. But that's how he knew so much about this.
so his third son was the
And
first American to come to India, and you were the second to.
nope. So the first American was actually Robert Svoboda, and he was in India in the 70s.
Okay, yeah. Have you met him?
Eh, just kind of in passing in person, but
Mm.
we know of each other. His books were the ones that I read deeply before going to India because he has had the best literature available in English for Ayurveda for many years, many decades, really. Um, so he was the first Westerner, the first non-Indian, let's say, to go ahead and be able to finish it. He started a whole train after that of folks in the 80s and 90s who were interested and who really wanted to be able to go do it. But from the stories I've heard, many of them tried and were rejected for this very same reason, the physics, chemistry, biology thing.
Yeah.
So it's it's ridiculous how difficult it is to get in. And just the whole mismatch, like it's a very strange setup. Um, but so, coming back to your question, why did I stay committed to this? One, most importantly, was my mentor. He was the one who really kind of drilled it into my mind that this is what I needed to be doing with my whole life. And till that point, it was like, what do you mean whole life? You can't even comprehend those kinds of questions in your 20s. You think you do, but you really can't. So you need that kind of guidance there. Once I finally got there, 3 months in, I was sicker than I had ever been sick in my entire life. And so I started desperately trying to figure out how to get better. I mean, I was covered in rashes, eating food with chilies in it 3 times a day, and the pollution and the heat and the humidity, everything else just was very tough on me that way environmentally and food wise. And so there wasn't really time for socialization. And that too, to try to socialize with 18-year-old Indian girls was kind of like, that was probably the most foreign thing to me. I sat in class, and I remember early in, maybe a couple weeks in, and some of the girls finally started talking to me, and they were like, "How old are you again?" 27. Immediately, "Are you married?"
Yeah.
I said, "No," and they all gasped and basically fell to the floor. "Oh my god, what will we do if we're not married at 27? Oh, no, no, no. Life will be over. That'll be the end." And so the
Yeah.
whole sort of mindset was, they're like the equivalent of 11 or 12-year-old Americans. This is the
Yeah.
first time most of them were living outside of their homes. And God bless them. They're wonderful, very, very cute, very delicate, very sweet girls. But there was a major disconnect just in life experience and mindset and all that kind of stuff. Um, so my main focus was like, first, how do I stop being as sick as I am? Because it was terrible. And then I found out about the Panchakarma stuff pretty much right off the bat. Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, you should go do Panchakarma, Virechana, blah blah blah. That's the best thing for you." I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And so I had no idea what I was getting into. And I go do it, and I had to stay that one night in the hospital for Virechana day, basically pooping day. That was a whole circus. I had brought this mosquito net with me. Okay. I thought this was the best idea ever because I don't like to sleep with mosquitoes. And so it's a pop-up tent that you can basically put on top of a bed, and it's a nice mosquito mesh. Nothing's going to get through the mesh. So of course I pop this thing up in my hospital bed at the end of the day. It's like 7, 8 o'clock. I'm exhausted. I want to go to sleep. And the cleaning lady comes barging in the door. Nobody knocks. Nobody cares. Throws all the lights on and looks and sees my tent and screams bloody murder. The entire hospital heard all of this. Everybody came rushing. What is going on? And so I was just like, please let me go home. Um, no, I mean, please let me go home back to my apartment.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was, you know,
But why did
I,
she
I,
scream?
I,
So you were covered in this mosquito net, and then she.
Yeah, I was just inside the tent, and so she just sees this big giant tent sitting on a bed, and I guess she thought, some alien landed on the bed. What happened? I don't know. I don't know what she thought.
Uh,
But so those were the kinds of experiences I ended up having, and I found it easiest just to kind of stick to myself and spend time mostly, more so on my own, um, and most importantly, study on my own. I came out again from a very different background from these kids, and the schooling that I had up to this point was very, very different. We're taught to think for ourselves. We're taught to learn how to increase and improve our critical thinking skills, rather than just sit down and copy what is being written and memorize it word for word. There was never that type of expectation. So I've tried to just spend time studying myself. And in first year at SDM, they granted me that option to spend more time studying on my own. By some miracle of God, I passed all my exams. Everybody was shocked. And Sanskrit, I passed by 3 marks. Bless my Sanskrit teacher. He was the most wonderful teacher at that school. I think he really understood, the situation I was in. And he was like genuinely trying to help and support me. And unfortunately, second year came around and they were like, no, 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 you passed all the exams. You go sit in class with everybody else. It's like, don't you understand? I passed because I studied and, utilized my time well rather than spending time sitting in class. And so they shot that one down. So I finagled a couple things and transferred to another school where they,
yeah.
from the start, continued that agreement that I could study kind of independently more so. And so that's how I finished it. So that level of commitment was kind of mixed up with a lot of other challenges that came along the way. And so it wasn't just the challenge of like, hey, study all this foreign material and good luck in a schooling system that is also totally foreign, but it was dealing with everything else in the meantime. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it was kind of fun in a way. Fun in the sense of like, can I even do this? The challenge of it. And by the time I got to third year, there was no question in the material and the challenge of the content. That was fantastic. I love learning. I love teaching. And I did both of those things in final year. I actually started small study groups with my classmates, and I would teach them from the text. I started practicing teaching directly. They even let me run a class one day, which was, I mean, they let me like actually run a class on Charaka, on Sindhistana one day, which was nice.
Wow.
So there was, a mix of ingredients here. Commitment comes from a lot of ambition and a lot of just eagerness and excitement and enjoyment, most importantly.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. So, it is clearly a lot more than that. You were driven by something larger. I mean, these challenges are not trivial. And yeah, I mean, I can talk about more spicy stuff like what happened in India after that, but we can also skip to uh, what you're doing today because that is also, I think it's so unique. It's so uniquely fitted to you. It can be seen. I have been through the program, the inaugural program of Radiance, and I've had the blessing of having these long conversations with you uh, multiple times, and I've learned so much from you. And I think you routinely get to interact with people like me, who are also a lot of these are also, I suppose, nerds in a sense. Like they have also tried a lot to figure their health out, and they've learned a lot. And then you are there at the edge of this knowledge. You are at the edge of human knowledge when it comes to these intersections of what modern science knows and what can be applied today. Like even with ancient wisdom, it's also about not just that wisdom, but its application in today's day and age, where the situations are very different than back then when things were written down. So you sit at this very unique intersection of all these things, and you are just able to work at that intersection and help people who are unhelpable. Like no one else can. Like, and I suppose most people feel this way. Like, yeah, no one else could have helped us. We were on our own. We were doing all this research and trying to put puzzles, like the pieces of puzzle together. But then you come in, and you just are able to put everything together for people like us. Uh, yeah, so that's more of a comment than question, but you can respond to that.
Yeah, it really is wonderful to get to work with people like you, Susmeet. Oh, I want to thank you for that, first off, for trusting the idea of even trying something like this. Because a lot of people do have a huge amount of knowledge. You guys are smart, first of all, and you're young, and you have plenty of skills to do much more than what we actually do in Radiance. I think what happens is because of that intelligence, most people who have that level of intelligence naturally go from 0 to 99 as quickly as they can, right? And then miss what happened in 5, what happened in 10 and 15. And that's kind of where the attention has to be brought back when we want to recreate or rebuild a state of health. And so it's just about helping you guys see the whole picture that way. But you really, I think you had the most opportunity out of anybody in that first group because you went to All India Institute of Ayurveda. You went and you did Panchakarma first out of anybody. And of course, Iboga. So this double whammy mega combination of just rewriting your body, rewriting your mind, and bringing everything into the track that is you. This is the essence of what we need to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that astonishes me as well. I might be the first person in humanity to have had this combination in this order, and you might be
Yes,
the
quite
first one
sweet.
to put it in the other order. So you did Iboga and then Virachin, and but you'd had Virachin, several Virachins even before that. But Yeah, so we are at this time in the history of humanity when everyone was earlier building in their own cultures and trying to figure life out and everything out. And now we have this opportunity to just combine these things. We have lost a lot, but we also have this unprecedented opportunity when we are able to just put these things together. And what's arising out of this? Yeah, I mean, it's an experiment, but and also I understand that these are slow processes. So, like, you had multiple variations over several years to get to the point where you are now. And same with Iboga, some people take multiple ceremonies to get to um, a good level. And there might be more remaining for me as well. But this combination was obviously just. So I have shared some things. I haven't shared them publicly yet, but I'm going to say a few things still in case we want to edit it out. We'll figure it out later. But yeah, I woke up with a different body when I was overnight. It was almost as if after the variation, uh, Boga was able to like clean out the mind wherever it was blocking the body. And because the body is nothing but a manifestation of the mind or something above the mind, whatever level that is. So it just removed all those blockages, and then suddenly my body just opened up within a span of 36 hours. This is not possible based on what we know about science. And because it happened to me and I experienced it and it was confirmed by everyone around me that yes, you're just taller, you say you're stronger and you look different, you have a different face. I went back to my baseline over the next few days, after the next few days. But I think Iboga just showed me that this is my actual potential. This is what I'm supposed to be. And it just also opened up this idea of questioning reality. And so, yes, I've said enough in one monologue. I would like to stop there and just let you comment first and then again take it forward.
Yeah, it's uh, I think all of this kind of actually speaks to the same concept of being able to um, become yourself fully in this age range
Mm.
from like 25 to 35 or 32. And this is a combination of things, right? Having a good mentor, having access to healthcare that's going to keep your body clean, having the ability to embark on these spiritual journeys to allow your mind to become as expansive as possible. And with what little we do know from Western science today, um, we finally see that the brain does not complete its full development until about the age of 30. This was already known in Ayurveda thousands of years ago, that mental development takes, or that complete development out of childhood takes until the age of 30. Even though the body will stop growing upwards once we hit puberty, somewhere around 16, that mental development portion is still very much happening. That's the other 15 years of childhood development from like 16 to 30, right? And so we get the body first, we get the brain and the mind and the emotions next. And so having the access to things which allow you to even just get a glimpse of who am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be capable of, looking like? What are my characteristics? All of these things. A glimpse of that before the age of 30 is phenomenal. And again, super glad that you went and did all this stuff, because that's the thing that most people aren't even gonna, never mind even finding out about this, but most people will reject the idea of even doing this as soon as they do hear about it. And that's a dangerous situation to be in if somebody wants to actually activate themselves for the rest of their lives. Um, so for whoever's listening, the stuff is out there. And your whole approach, right, that you came to us with prior to having started Radiance, of let me search, let me try to figure this out for myself. That's fantastic. That curiosity mindset and that drive and that motivation mindset to want to do something better for yourself is absolutely required I think, before really seriously doing any of these things, especially so the basics in Ayurveda. Take a person who's been sick for 10 years and they're willing to do anything and everything just to get out of that. Is it because they genuinely want to get better? Or is it because they just want to stop suffering? And those are two very different mind states, actually. The desire to simply stop suffering is going to hit a dead end sooner than you think. But if you have that desire to constantly want to build yourself and to constantly want to innovate yourself and improve on yourself, that's going to happen until the day you die.
I feel it's not different for me. So it's either suffering or either you work on yourself or there is suffering. I don't think there's something in between. That's too fleeting for me. If even if there is, it doesn't stay. So okay. Yeah. So what I was also trying to touch upon was there's also research on psychedelics now. The Johns Hopkins University and several places around the world, and then there is researchers in different who are approaching it different ways. Somewhere someone is doing it in quantum mechanics and someone's doing it in some other way. And they're coming to the realization that there's probably something more than the body and the mind. And so we don't have to like so because of Iboga, I got into this line of thinking as well. And this really opened up another kind of exploration for me since then. And I've been going places and um, while still keeping some of my logical mind intact, not too much. Too much is not possible after a point, after it gets too real, because what I have experienced cannot be explained by logic. So that part of me has been dissolved. Have you touched upon, like, have you developed any opinions or any concepts about this whole idea of reality larger than being larger than body and mind?
Yeah, I personally, I definitely subscribe to the idea that there's something bigger and something beyond um, uh, what can be comprehended while we are in human form.
Right.
But at the same token, our limitation is that we can't understand it. So it's really, none of my business, so to speak, to try to go and figure that stuff out, and at least not right now. And I think that I got a lot of that um, idea and practical aspect of this actually directly from Ayurveda.
Wow.
There's a lot of information in the text that helps us, understand how do we put life together. And so Ayurveda isn't just about like, just live a healthy life and be done with it, but it's really the whole entire thing. And there's even an entire chapter out of 120 in the Chanaka Samhita that talks about what is sort of beyond. Like, first of all, where does life come from? What is this idea of the soul or this continuous spirit, persistent spirit, and what happens outside of that? And actually, the only people who are able to see something that might be beyond this physical realm that we're in, the only people who are seeing that stuff, according to classical literature, are people with mental defects. They're seeing it because their mind is not strong enough. Their mind is it's like leaky gut syndrome almost, where they're peeking out into places that they're not supposed to see. And so after sitting with that for some time, I thought to myself, you know what? Just don't even go there. You know what I mean? Like, the whole point of us being in this human form is to do something while we're here. If I spend 50 to 80% of my time being here and thinking about being over there, I'm going to miss everything I'm supposed to have done here. And so
Wow.
that sort of put me right into action a little bit more and say, all right, well, then what should I be doing while I'm here? Life is divided into major epochs, let's say. The first is Dharma, and Dharma is a period of life where we are studying what it is that we should do with our lives. What are we here as a tool for, right? Then there's artha, actually doing it. And then there's kama, getting the fruits out of it, bearing, enjoying the fruits of our labor, essentially. And then moksha, that spiritual end point, that sort of disconnection from our binding in this life. That's the time to be going around and thinking about that stuff. And so, look into the history of all these ascetics, or the great spiritual folks in India, or places like Nepal, or Bhutan, or any of those sorts of places. Do you see 17-year-olds running around in there trying to sit and meditate and, attain these great things? Usually not. Granted, they do have that groups of younger men that are being trained into monkhood, but the ones that are really revered are the folks that are in their older period of this. So I think we need to take that into account too. And one of the benefits of having access to all these things easily now, like you mentioned before, even though we may have lost some information, we now have such an abundance of bits and pieces of everything. One problem with that is that as a younger person, you don't necessarily know when and how should I be indulging in this. And that's actually really important.
Yes. It's a double-edged sword, yes. Correctly said. And especially for a mind like me, as you know, which and so everything you mentioned, I would take that as your opinion. And I think Indian literature, philosophies, different schools are full of different opinions. So it's always possible to find something on the other end as well. Um, but I find it really fascinating that you were able to put an end to your part of life, which was about meandering a little bit. So you did your, you went around. But then when you found your thing, you have been committed to it ever since. And you have been committed in the face of all kinds of challenges. So we talked about challenges in India, but I'm sure US, being in the US and doing Ayurveda, it's must have been full of so many challenges. Where you have come today, even right now, it's not easy, but even where you've come today, I think it's taken a lot of effort and several years of really that's very commendable. And because of that, your wisdom, or the wisdom of the entire tradition, is coming to us through you, because you put in all that effort all these years. Okay. So you mentioned you can respond, or I had, oh, we have spent a lot of time talking. I did not realize that. Okay. uh, so one more thing that came to me, so you can respond to the other thing as well as this one. So variation, when I experienced variation, I was surprised that even variation had a component of, in order to keep the conversation not very hunky dory, like not very modern easy, we can just say the mind and the body. So it has a component of the mind as well, especially after the snehapan, the initial stage. I think, like after the drinking of ghee, like it does something to you. Like it definitely did to me, and I'm surprised. Every tradition in India is just like there's no single science that's distinct, because life is not like that. So everything merges with everything else. So it just opened up so much for my on my mind level as well, and it was like fine to cleanse it or something to that degree. And as you said, sometimes it takes multiple variations to get rid of everything. In my case, I had the Iboga experience, so that took care of it. But yeah, so uh, yeah, I would like you to just comment upon that. Like, what did variation do to me at that time? Like, it felt like I was in a different state of mind. As it is, yeah,
The body's a very funny thing, right? The body is our vehicle for experience in the world. And so whatever we do outwardly as an expression of energy, like the energy that we put into the world, and whatever we receive as what we're taking in from our experiences. All of that seems to write to memory, emotional memory, factual memory, memories that we would typically understand as just a big chunk of memory in our brain that we use to recall certain facts and figures. We use to recall certain experiences. Oh, when I was 10 years old, I went here and there and did this and that. And certain uh, peak emotional experiences, especially, right? Having certain relationships with people and the um, changes that come out of that, or the experiences that come out of that. So all these memories get just kind of thrown in like a big garbage dump pile in our brain somewhere. Is that how it works? I think Western science doesn't really know how this works. I don't think we can give a good answer to that. For me, from a practical standpoint, having seen myself undergo Virginia 11 times now
Yeah.
total, having seen so many other people and patients undergo Virginia over time, single episode or multiple, whatever it may be. I think memories are stored throughout the physical body. Some in some places, some in other places. There's no one singular home. They can potentially be stored in any part of our body, any part of our physical being. And is it the actual memory itself, or is it some aspect of the memory? So, for example, if we broke memories down into, like what I mentioned earlier, facts and figures, emotions, right, that kind of stuff. Maybe facts and figures end up in the brain, and maybe emotions end up in the body. I'm just guessing. So, when we drink all this ghee, what happens is ghee has the ability to penetrate all of the fat centers and fat stores of our body. Every single cell in the body is lined with a double phospholipid membrane, which is a wall of fat, essentially. So this ghee is now floating around throughout our body against and intermingling with all of the fatty tissues and essence of our body, and it can penetrate through all of this binding. And so as it does that, now things that are in storage suddenly slip out by osmosis, in a sense, because the gradient is higher one side to the other. And so we create a vacuum pull. We create the ability to separate things that are stuck in the body from our actual body. And this is an experience that, nobody can really understand until they go through it, which is why I really seriously, honestly recommend that every person should try Viregerin one time, because you never know what's hiding in you until you actually go and try to take it out. But, you've got to be ready for that, obviously. You can't just randomly pull any person off the street willy-nilly. Hey, let's go. Start drinking some ghee. Right? You got to come into this with like the mindset of, okay, I'm doing something big here. But it gives you that ability to then extract all the stuff that's been hiding in you and use it for whatever you want. Use it as a growth development tool. Use it as like let me, kind of go back into memories and resolve some things, that kind of tool, whatever is needed in that moment.
Wow. Yeah, talking to you always makes me more curious about diving deeper into even uh, everything that you have studied, and the completeness that the science touches is just. Uh, but I think my calling is somewhere else. My mind is ready to wander everywhere, but so that's what I am struggling with right now. So yeah, I think I would like to come back to your mentor part of it, and so can you talk a little bit more about that person? And so because yeah, you have been my mentor, especially when I went for Iboga, it was completely based on trusting you. So I knew that okay, Jessica's done it. I can go to this remote country in West Africa. I can take this plant substance and I'll be fine. And as someone who has never had any such experience at all, I haven't been so crazy. Uh, so that's why I understand how a mentor can, once you have that trust with a mentor, that then you can just, and this gives you the strength to keep going, that, yeah, this is just the right thing. Like Ayurveda is the thing. And I can spend 4 years getting this degree. I can spend all these months with these illnesses, and I know it will get better. If not, after one variation, after 2, 3, 11, and you persisted with it, and the results came. Yeah, like, yeah. What can you talk more about the next, the mentorship part?
So my mentor was a very amazing guy. He was born in the 1930s, and so or he's got some age on him at this point. Right, right. But this is the thing is, there's so much to be learned from older folks. And I think that's actually one big thing that's kind of maybe not as strong as it could be in society today, right? All the younger folks, are, especially all the genius types, are all online. They're all kind of, electronic. And so, where are the older folks in that process, right? They're few and far between. Um, so, make an effort to try to find somebody if you can to be a mentor, but you can't really. I don't know if you even if you actively look, or can you find them, or do they need to find you? I don't know the answer to that, right? So I was connected with my mentor through another mentor, actually, who was my yoga teacher in Boston. And he was the one who taught me Iyengar yoga, thankfully, when I was 19, which really changed the course of my physical structure for the rest of my life. So that was a wonderful piece as well. And then he had a friend who had some trouble with his computer stuff and needed help. So I went over and met him, and just kind of long story short, he and his brother, they started a newspaper in the 1960s called the Bay State Banner. It's the oldest black run newspaper in Boston. And so he and his brother have continued to run. It's in the family. They're continuing it. And so I said, obviously I'm not going to charge you for this. Like maybe there's some kind of exchange. It was so simple. He just needed some help with like formatting some Excel sheets. It was way too easy. I said, I can't charge you for that. That's you know. And he's a very nice guy. And so I found out that he actually had studied Western astrology with a woman who was born in 1898. And he had been practicing Western astrology during the 60s and 70s in New York and a bunch of other places. He was amazing with it. And so that was actually where some of this stuff came out from. So I said, that's I didn't know anything about it at the time. I thought it was cool. But he said, look, it's very mathematical. There's a science behind it. And I said, let's do a trade. I'll help you with whatever you need with your computer stuff. If you can teach me some of this, I'd love to learn it. And that's how the whole thing began. Um, so a lot of the insight and direction, I think, also came from that.
That's a nice story. But I think I have, or at least I seem to think that I have commitment issues of some kind. Like I'm not able to just stick with one thing, or like that thing hasn't found me yet. Or so I have to probably just get into the flow of everything that's happening to me, put it out in the form of this content that I'm going to now be generating.
Yeah.
And then that,
One piece of advice I would give you is try to look at the things that you're good at and
yeah.
the things that you feel like you would willingly and happily wake up every day and just want to do. What is that thing? Or some number of things. And that's going to start narrowing down your selection here.
Yeah, so I'll think more about this question. I was going to give an immediate answer based on what I know at the moment, but I'll sit with that question, and I will give you the rest of the 5 minutes to prepare for going to the next call, which I suppose you have with a patient. And thank you, Jessica, for what you do, and thank you for this time.
Thank you, Susmeet. This is really great. I love meeting you. I love having conversations with you because you are so thoughtful and really, careful in trying to be present in the things that you are doing. So I have no doubt in my mind that you will succeed at whatever it is your mind stops on or decides to rest on.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That means a lot. And we'll meet again.
We can do round 2 anytime. Let me know, all right?
I hope you enjoyed listening. If you would like to stay connected with the guest or with me, you will find some links in the description. I hope to see you in the next episode.